Thank you. Senator Waters.
Thank you, Chair. Can I start off on Great Barrier Reef matters, please? How often did the department brief the preceding three ministers on the Abbot Point project prior to the final decision brief in December of 2013?
Senator, there were a number of discussions with various ministers over the course of the referral of that document, the original proposal to its final decision point.
And did the department ever brief the minister clearly and frankly on Gabrumpa's concerns over the course of 2013?
The minister would have been informed of the range of inputs that we would have received to informing the decision and the
Could
recommendation.
You speak up? Sorry, we've got just a bit of other background
Sorry,
noise.
Senator. What I was saying was that as a standard practice for any approval decision recommendation to the minister, he would be briefed on the range of stakeholder views and other expert opinion, such as that of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority.
Okay. Did you advise the minister that the Gabrumpa officials believed the offset proposed by the proponents was, quote, unachievable?
What we briefed the minister on was the final position of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, which was supportive of the proposal with the proposed conditions of approval.
Okay, so you briefed the minister on the final position of Gabrumpa. When I asked earlier if you briefed the minister on Abbot Point during the course of 2013, you said yes. Given that Gabrumpa raised significant concerns during the course of 2013, was the minister ever briefed on those earlier concerns expressed throughout that year by Gabrumpa?
Again, during the course of the consideration of this project, there was a number of occasions where there were discussions about the proposal, and it is quite regular where there will be a range of positions or initial thinking that occurs within my organization, within organizations that also provide us input to informing our decision. That's standard, absolutely standard practice. There'd be a range of views that would be brought to bear to inform the final approval decision package.
Sure, that's about the final, but during the course of 2013...
I imagine expect there to be a range of views about a matter where the details around it are subject to some change over a period of time as well, Senator, which you're well aware that the scale of what was proposed originally by the Queensland Government was significantly different compared with what ultimately has been approved.
Thank you. I'm not referring to that was several years ago. I'm just talking about 2013. So, Mr Knudsen, if I can just clarify, during the course of, and if I could do so in a manner that's audible, during the course of 2013, did the department brief the minister on the concerns that Gabrumpa held about the Abbot Point proposal?
Well, I think what's relevant is what Gabrumpa ultimately determined, Senator.
With respect, we've established that, and I'm now seeking to go back.
What the Gabrumpa CEO had to say in 2014 very clearly was that the dredge disposal from Abbot Point will be a highly managed activity, and it will not, as some headlines have suggested, mean the Great Barrier Reef will become a sludge repository or that tonnes of mud will be dumped on coral reefs. It is true to say that despite all these safeguards, placing dredge material on land rather than in the marine park remains our preferred choice, providing it does not mean transferring environmental impact to sensitive wetlands connected to the reef ecosystem. But based on considerable scientific evidence before us, we approved the application for Abbot Point with conditions on the basis that potential impacts from offshore disposal were manageable and that there would be no significant or lasting impacts on the reef's World Heritage values.
If I can just interrupt you, I'm familiar with that document. My questions go to a time frame prior to that.
Gabrumpa, of course, do...
Order, Senator Waters. Senator Waters, Senator Birmingham speaking.
I have no doubt that they'll happily explain the process by which they came to their final determination, but what is relevant to this matter is the final landing point and determination of Gabrumpa.
Well, thank you. What's relevant to my question at the minute, and I appreciate your explanation, which I was familiar with, I was specifically asking about the earlier concerns that were expressed throughout the course of 2013 and whether the department briefed the minister on those concerns, Mr Knudsen.
So, Senator, Mr Knudsen's spoken to the point of the range of advice that was provided to the minister, and I spoke earlier about the robust and rigorous environmental impact assessment that was
Well, can I get a
undertaken
simple
by
answer
Abbot
then? Is it a
Point.
yes or no?
And so, as part of a robust environmental impact assessment, one would expect risk assessments to be undertaken by technically competent bodies, for the outcomes of those risk assessments to be taken into account.
One would
and
expect that. That's
mitigated
why I'm
and
asking.
offset as part
Was
of
the
the
minister
final
told?
package.
Was the minister advised on Gabrumpa's concerns during the course of 2013? Yes or no?
Mr Knudsen's already answered that question,
He said
Senator.
generally. Is that a yes or a no? I don't want it verbal you. I would like a clear answer.
You keep talking about Grumpa's concerns without really asking any particular specific question either.
Well, that's because there's about 1,000 pages that we've been given, Parliamentary Secretary, and I'm not going to spend the very limited time that I have going through each one of them. I'm asking whether those concerns were conveyed to the minister during the course of 2013. It's a very simple question with a yes or no answer.
Senator, what we've said is that we've briefed the minister on numerous occasions, the ministers on numerous occasions through the course of 2013. Those briefings were extensive. They covered the risk and progress of the impact assessment, and all of those thousands of pages of documents were consolidated, synthesised and put into the final assessment package that was considered by the current minister.
So would you say that the department clearly and frankly communicated the concerns, or were they filtered or rephrased or synthesised, consolidated?
Senator, I can say absolutely unequivocally that the brief that went to the minister was developed in collaboration, close collaboration with the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority. It reflected
That's
their
the
views.
final brief. I'm talking
That's
about
correct.
the earlier briefings that you've said have occurred.
Senator, the brief that is of relevance is the final brief. That is the
Well, with
brief that the
respect, the
decision
brief
was
that's
made
of
upon.
relevance is the one that I'm asking you about,
Well,
and they are the ones that
no,
preceded the final brief.
The final brief is the brief on which the minister made the decision in relation to this development.
I'm aware of that. Thank you, Parliamentary Secretary.
The other thing I would...
Other things you might be asking about probably go to advice to government that might inform answers or briefs for these sorts of estimates processes, question time processes, other things that might inform policy advice to government or otherwise. They are matters not routinely canvassed here. If you're wanting to talk about the information on which the minister based his decision, then that's a perfectly reasonable line of questioning. Otherwise, it seems to me to be a fishing expedition about advice that might be provided by the department to government through normal processes of government rather than the actual information on which a decision was based.
Yes, precisely, Parliamentary Secretary. I am trying to establish what the minister did and did not know.
Well, the minister was fully informed when he made the decision.
And you're confident of that?
Absolutely.
That the minister was informed of Gabrumpa's concerns during 2013?
You have just heard that the final brief on which the minister made the decision was developed in close consultation with Gabbrumpa.
And did Gabbrumpa have the opportunity to brief the minister directly on the Abbot Point proposal?
Senator, I think that's a question that should be best directed towards the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority when they appear later on this evening.
Well, I'll ask them as well, but I'm interested in...
So, Senator, what we can say without the benefit of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority being here is that the minister travelled to Queensland early in the term of being the minister, and that he travelled to a range of sites along the coast of Queensland, including Abbot Point, and that he had extensive briefings with the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority as part of that trip.
Okay, and what dates were those?
I don't recall.
Was that prior to the
We'll
approval
take that on
decision?
notice.
Yes, it was prior to the decision.
Was it after November?
Senator,
We'll take the date on notice,
Thank you.
Senator.
Yes, thank you very much. Is it the department's role to filter information from key scientific bodies before providing it to the minister?
It's the department's role to prepare the Secretary's recommendation report so that the minister or other delegates can undertake their statutory responsibilities under the EPBC Act.
And does that require filtering?
It necessarily requires summarisation of the material that's been provided in the environmental impact assessment, as well as an assessment of whether that information has veracity, is technically correct, covers off on all of the matters that are required to be considered under the EPBC Act, and it also requires the development of relevant conditions.
In relation to the veracity point, would the fact that scientific bodies may have changed their view, would that make it into a brief?
One of the features of the environmental impact assessment system is that risks are identified and then mitigated through the process of the assessment, bringing together a final decision that relates to both the proposed activity and the proposed mitigation measures that might go with that.
Given that the conditions for the Abbot Point approval require an offsets plan to be developed after the approval's been given, why is Gaboompa not also required to tick off on that offsets plan?
The offsets plan, and I'll ask Ms. Callister to correct me if I've got this factually incorrect, but the offsets plan has a review process to it, and it would be fairly standard practice that we would want to consult with whatever experts were relevant to inform our decision in determining whether that offset strategy was adequate or not. I would note that the offset strategy fits into a few key elements of this decision that I think are very important to put on the record. Number one is that with respect to the dredging that is proposed at Abbot Point, it primarily consists of silt and sand. It is proposed at this point to be disposed of on material that will be in the ocean of that space of a similar nature of silt and sand. In addition to that, it's proposed that that site is 24 kilometers away from Abbot Point and is about 20 kilometers away from any significant seagrass growth area. In addition, it's about 40 kilometers away from any significant reef formations, coral reef formations. And then finally, it's proposed to that the dredging activity will occur specifically in a way that is limited so that it is outside of any of the growth periods for either seagrass or coral. That's a set of key conditions that were in the approval, specifically, as Dr. Drips talked about, to ensure that this project is undertaken in a way that avoids or mitigates any significant risks. And then finally, for any residual risk that remains, there is the offset strategy, which I'll turn to Ms. Callister to elucidate on further.
Briefly, if you can, please. I have very limited time.
Deb Callister from the Queensland and Sea Dumping Assessment Branch. Just to clarify, the conditions of the approval specifically say in relation to the offsets plan that it must outline the consultation process undertaken with Gaboompa in developing the offsets plan, and the offsets plan also needs to be approved by a dredging technical advice panel.
Thank you.
And the
I have read
membership
those
of that
conditions.
panel requires consultation with Gaboompa as well.
Thank you very much. I might pass over to Senator Siewert and hopefully have time to come back, given that I've had 11 minutes in a 1 hour 45 session, if possible, Chair.